No, that's why God took away your gag reflex.
Ugh.
Hey guys, before we get into today's video, I want to give a quick shout out to the sponsor of today's episode, Marley Spoon. Marley Spoon is a global meal subscription plan that delivers meals like no other. They offer over 100 recipes each week, including premium recipes for those special occasions, and add-ons like breakfast, appetizers, desserts, and more. They also cater to a wide variety of diets, such as pescatarian, low-carb, vegetarian, and with flavors from around the world to satisfy any palate. And the recipe cards are super easy to follow. No long-winded backstories, just simple instructions with pictures so you can follow along. And the recipe cards give you a great base to play around with in case you want to try to experiment and create your own recipes. And because everything is pre-packaged and portioned, there's less waste, which means no more throwing out unused cheese or half a head of lettuce. Some of the meals we had this week were sumac chicken thighs, my personal favorite, caramelized onion dip burgers with sweet potato wedges, and for dessert, apple crumble pie with pecan streusel. It was like a big pie too. We made it at the start of the week, and by this next weekend, we still had pie. I would strongly recommend to any foodies in my audience to try Marley Spoon. And for a little incentive, you can use the link in the description or use coupon code Maddy235 to get $235 off your first 5 boxes with Marley Spoon. That's about $4.99 a portion for 5 gourmet meals delivered to your door. Again, you can find that link in the description or the pinned comment. And now, on to the video. Hi guys, welcome back to Give It To Me Straight. I'm your host, Maddy Morphosis, and if you're watching this, you're trans now. Because on the show today, we have Tranos herself from season 14, Miss Kerri Colby.
Another one. Thank you. Oh my God. I'm here. I've been watching. I've been like rooting you on since you first started. Like, this is good. I like this. And I've been commenting. I've been like, bring me here. Let me do it. Read me. And you know, out of all the times to be read, this might be the one time I could break.
It could be, hopefully.
I'm a little fragile, but yeah. I think that's also the best time to interview.
Yeah, I know you have a lot going on in life, and like the last thing I want to do is exploit people, but at the same time, I have an algorithm to feed too. So
you have an algorithm to feed?
It's cosmic, divine timing.
And I have an escapist mentality, so yeah. I think that they worked well together. I mean, trust me, everything y'all are seeing, if you like see something in this interview and you're like, oh, I cannot believe, like that's not okay. Just full disclosure, I gave full permission, full reign, full transparency for you to just take me to the Pentecostal, God, campgrounds and back. You look like my niece.
Yeah, I again, like as she said, like I got full clearance, so I made sure this was okay before I dressed up as her religious trauma. I just, so we're clear. I was like, this would be a really funny bit, but let me make sure. Okay, so.
Yeah, I'm down for it. The SNL of it all.
Yeah.
It's giving very like strict satire, but I love it. It's like astringent.
Ooh, astringent.
And this is honestly like, I feel like this is perfect because lo and behold, while we're filming this, I have a whole funeral I'm going to tomorrow, and this I feel like is the perfect release. I'm seeing a bunch of you tomorrow.
Yeah, this is the segue for you tomorrow.
My entire family. So this is like my
a sneak peek of what's to come in Dallas.
With a lot less makeup and actually, sorry Gia Gunn, a lot less glamour.
Less makeup? I'm not wearing any makeup. They're wearing, how do you mean less makeup?
But they find a way to like lessen the less of the makeup.
That like sucks more out of their pores.
Yeah.
Is Kerri short for anything?
I mean, I do have some friends that like when they want to like talk to me crazy, they're like, oh my God, Kerri Lynn. But like, to be honest with you, it was always Kerri. Like I picked Kerri specifically.
With 2 eyes.
With 2 eyes initially. Yeah. 2 R's, 2 eyes. Way back in the day. And that was like my one thing from like Dallas, from Texas, from cross-dressing and finding myself, because I didn't really get on stage and do drag, and I didn't really look at drag queens, so I guess it was cross-dressing. But
I would say it was cross-dressing. It was a soft launching transness. You just didn't realize it yet.
I mean, I think those are kind of synonymous. Clearly, I mean, look.
If this is my gateway into being a trans woman, I feel like I went backwards. I went backwards a couple steps. I think I went the wrong way.
I think you look very feminine. Like, this is female presenting.
I look like every Pentecostal girl from my hometown. So
the ones that are going to hell in a handbasket because they're sneaking lashes. There's a lot of their ankles showing.
Yeah.
They're wearing 2 layers, not 5.
It's like I'm saving myself for God, but they do a lot of anal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're very kinky motherfuckers.
But you've come so far in life. Like you went from being that little Pentecostal kid in Texas to now you're on my show, like a major show.
Literally.
We have 3 cameras. Like, this is a hit show. This is a big deal.
I am my parents' biggest disappointment, and this specifically is why.
They're going to be like, when you did that interview with that nice little Christian girl, like, that was, you know, I'm glad to see you're coming back.
The entire UPCI.
This is Monday service right now.
This is Monday service. And the entire UPCI is so happy that we're bridging these great gaps.
What's the hymn today? What's the vibe? What's the spiritual?
Today it was giving a Negro spiritual.
Okay.
It was given, my ass is heavy, my chest is light. Good God Almighty, I'ma stir up a fight. You know?
Amen.
And that's exactly how we crossed the Underground Railroad, from what I've been told.
I wasn't there. I can't comment or speculate.
You know, I don't think I was there, but maybe like one of my past lives, I think.
But like I said, you did make it, and on top of all your accomplishments, you are now an official model, like signed to a model agency and everything. And New York Fashion Week is coming up. Are you walking for Fashion Week this year?
I believe that I am supposed to be. The one thing about having an agency that I've learned is like, it is the most disorganized, beautiful thing ever, because one day you could be at home, be like, hey, what's going on? Y'all got anything for me? And they'll be like, no, not yet, working on something. And the next day they'll be like, okay, we're flying you first class, Milan, Italy. Once you get off the plane, Donatella Versace will be right there. Say hi to her. Make sure you don't fuck up. And you're just like, well, damn, you know, but I'm really happy that like I don't have to do that like projection thing where it's like, what do you do? Oh, I model, and like I do like a little burlesque number on stage. I'm like, at this point, you can Google me, Getty Image, BFAs. I'm there, so I'm like, okay, like, work.
I'm on Getty Images too. Just clear the record. Yeah.
You are HD friendly and certified.
I don't know about friendly. I know the HD is not friendly, but you know, that's beside the point.
No, it never is. But I feel like you've gotten your makeup together. It's not giving season 14.
It's definitely not giving season 14
or
right
it's like
now.
maybe you take like a lot more than 2 hours now. I don't know.
Huh?
Well, we had the 2 hour limit. So now you take
that
like
honestly helped. It's like a mix between having like a little bit more time to spend on my makeup, the practice of like doing more shows and getting faster, and then the shots. So it all comes together, and it just makes it, you know, makes the mug a little better.
The shots. You have anything to talk about? What shot?
You know, it's just, I don't want to say too much.
I've been telling you that this is my missing stone. We may not be able to talk about it, but
you say that like it ain't Georgia's, but beside the point.
It's one of the two of y'all. It is.
But with you becoming a model and like all the accomplishments that you've had, how thankful are you that you fixed your teeth when you did?
Very. I mean, yeah, very. Actually,
because your front 2 teeth, they were not friends.
They were not. Actually, my front 4 teeth.
It's like whenever you're younger and like you and your siblings are beefing, you're like in the car together and you just kind of turn your bodies away from each other. That was you and your front teeth.
Oh, fully. I was Mrs. like, the reads for me was like, you are Miss Bucktooth bitch and your side profile's weak. So it was, I mean, you know how Texas, they read you down when you're growing up. So that was like my reads. And I was like, ooh. But now, if I can be honest, I kind of feel like me having like the gap system might have like given me like more bookings, because they love that. They love that very unique beauty. Very like, there is no one else that's going to look quite like this.
Like if you had like the same aesthetic now, but you had like the London look gap.
Yeah, well, it was like, I don't even, it was like Tribeca look, because it was like 4. It was like it was 3 gaps, like 1, 2, 3. Yeah. And then they kind of protruded.
You could eat cabbage through a chain link fence. Like it was rough. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I had no problem opening bottles with my teeth. Like I was that girl. I was hillbilly boots. You know, I had to unlearn all that.
Had to unlearn it. Did you unlearn it though?
Yeah, because I don't want to break a tooth. I already like broke one, and I was like, oh, that's not it.
Oh, you like veneers are expensive.
They are.
Yeah.
They are.
What would you say has been more detrimental to your love life? Do you think it's the fact that you hate bottoming, and the fact that you're only attracted to gay men?
I mean, you know, a lot of gay men are very down for the cause.
Ally.
They are very much transsexual allies, but you know, Power Top Nabrazzi is not my calling in ministry. We got a girl for that. We got a sister, Miss Jade. So, I don't know. I feel like my unattraction to anal really does do a doozy. Also, the fact that like I'm considered intimidating. I think that has something to do with it, but
Is it?
I don't see it.
Are you like anti-anal? Or are you anti like sex? Just about like what do you actually like, Kerri? What are you looking for? What are you trying to get into?
I think people find that I like because my fantasy, like the essence of like what inspired me was a very hypersexual person, someone who was so hypersexual that sex didn't exist. Like they just were, vaginal, lactating breasts, walking, hair swinging, no waist. Like that's just it. It's just about owning and loving and celebrating just sheer unadulterated unhinged femininity, like a hormone monster from Big Mouth. But
It's like less about having sex and more like feeling like sex.
yeah, I love feeling sexual. But you know what?
You don't want euphoria. You want validation.
Probably I never got it growing up.
Oh,
Yeah.
this is therapy.
I mean, it's what it is.
Let Sister Peters know. Tell me about
What
it.
it is, ho? What's up? Didn't validate me growing up. They didn't. Fuck.
Not the parody verse.
Absolutely, honey.
But being a model and like being like beautiful and successful and having these accomplishments that you do you think that's like helped you in like your love life, or do you think it's been more of a detriment?
I would love to you know what? Let me talk to these trans babies out here because I was bamboozled.
Okay.
I I was seriously bamboozled. I really thought that if we have a traumatic upbringing, so Christian, didn't have the ability to do anything, see anything, be anything. I saw that girl on TV, never felt like I could be her. You know what? I also do not identify with the body I'm in. It makes me traumatized, a little suicidal, has a lot of PTSD, anxiety. So all of that, I was like, you know what? I think I have the solution. Become what I always loved. Become what I always loved. Become your first true love, right? In doing that, I'm happier than I've ever been, but I'm also like so alienated. Like,
Was your first love the fish from Shark Tale?
oh my God.
That's what it's giving. Especially with this hair right now.
Sexy lady, she'll take your money. I will.
Because you need it.
At this point, yeah. Season 14 was like 75 seasons ago. Bitch,
Yeah.
I will. I'll take that money, bitch. Prostitution, escorting, high end, okay?
After you moved to LA, like you did escorting for a while.
I did.
Yeah. Like,
I mean,
I'm assuming it was like higher profile people because like you weren't like. doing...
technically, I'm not under NDA with like the people I'm thinking of, but like I can't go against bro code and like out people. I'm not about that, but like
Not outing people.
they're all into the
not saying names, but like the occupations, and give us like a rough estimate of like follower count of like the most famous men that you've worked with.
I mean, let me look it up.
I'm curious. Like the most famous.
Oh, okay. I mean, quite a few. Million?
Quite a few. 8 million?
No.
Oh, that's a lot of million.
Yeah.
That is not. That's not what I expected.
Scraggly.
Yeah.
Iconically scraggly.
I expected more. I thought you were about to show me like an NFL player. I was not expecting.
There are pro athletes at this point.
I wasn't expecting a rapper, much less that rapper. That's all I'll say.
Let me just tell you, in Hollywood, don't be fooled by the rocks that these niggas got. Okay, please. Like, these men are so traumatized, and keep in mind, like, here's my thing about like escorting, supporting yourself. Like, we all do what we need to do to survive. And there are people who literally find their life's enjoyment on discovering and exploiting and using us. And we charge them for it. And we're able to live a better life because of it, which, my escorting days were before I got on TV and Drag Race. And it's just, that's what it is. Like sometimes when ends are not working out, bills are tight, and you know that there's an entire community of people out there, specifically industry people, that are there to support you and make your dreams possible. Like they make it possible to get your gender affirming care and to afford the lifestyle. Being trans is not cheap. So I'm thankful to them, but like, I always just don't be fooled, honey. These men get whatever they want anytime they want for their entire life since they pop off and become famous. So like just think about that in your own personal terms. If you love pasta, you love pasta. You are an Italian queen, but then you become like famous for pasta and you're forced or not forced, but you're encouraged to eat pasta every day for the rest of your life. There's going to get a point where like it doesn't matter if it's rigatoni, penne, ravioli, lasagna, you're going to hate pasta. So that's how a lot of these guys are. They've had access to so much. They're so codinged out. They've ran up and down and in and through every pretty girl you can think of online. And then like they want something new.
Yeah.
They're all bottoms though. I'm for the fantasy. I'm for the foreplay. I'm for the cunnilingus. I'm for the of it all, you know, but
Outside of that, you're a good Christian woman.
Yeah, I'm not putting nothing in nobody that don't belong to me, and I'm not letting nothing that, you know, isn't mine really get put up in me like that, especially with accountability. So like it just gets awkward, you know? It just gets awkward.
A prude.
Pentecostal.
Yeah.
How does it feel to be embodying a prude?
I'm the same way, 100%. Me and you, I feel like we are the same, two sides of the same coin.
We are the straight girlies.
Yeah.
We honestly are the straight girlies.
So I came into the show, I'm like, oh, I'm a straight drag queen. And then you came in, I said, another one, thank you.
You did.
Yeah.
Yeah. We both, like, when we saw each other, we had, like, that full Nene Leakes candy. We're like, we see each other.
Like, everyone keeps talking about, like, our season is like, oh, it's the Trantastic season, the most trans women. I'm like, technically, it's got more straight queens than trans queens, so.
How interesting is that?
I'm just saying. My impact.
Wow.
My impact.
Iconic, legendary, never to be the same.
I know.
I genuinely think that you were the first and the last straight male we might see.
Hopefully. If another one comes along and they're better, and they probably will be, it's going to ruin my whole brand. So I'm...
Imagine though, like, what would you have to go through to be straight and be like a better aesthetic queen than you?
Yeah, I know a couple queens and like their eggs are about to crack. They don't know it yet.
It's a slippery slope, baby. Just keep in mind, because you know, when you get that trans experience, baby, it hits different. And sometimes you can't, that's not a one and done. You get taken, you get transported. See what I did there?
Hey.
See what I did there? You get carried away.
In trance. Oh, carried away.
You get carried away, you know, and you need it. It's a revolving door. So, you know.
But what was the escort work that you did? Was that like something that helped fund your Drag Race package when you were getting for Drag Race? Was that a lot of like how you survived in LA leading up to that point?
I wouldn't be able to fairly say that was fully how I supported myself, but it was how I made ends meet. I did hair, so I had a wig business. I did, the government was able to help me a little bit. And then on top of that.
Nothing wrong with a little wig. It's okay.
Yeah.
EBT.
Yeah. Collect it. Like, we live in this country that feeds off of us. Why don't you feed off of them?
Hey.
Okay. Like, for real. But I will say for me to have gotten certain things, like, for example, you get a call after all this auditioning and you need $10,000, $20,000 to go and invest in to get some stuff. I will not sit here and say that, like, you know, escorting wasn't a part of how I was able to do that, or, you know, gender affirming care. A lot of times I was able to use escorting as a means to achieve the fantasy that I held for myself. Yeah.
Prior to like our season and the season before of Drag Race, there wasn't the best relationship with the trans community with Drag Race. And there had been contestants in the past that came out on the show, or ones that were like stealth transitioning during the show. But after Gottmik, you were the first like trans person and the first trans woman to like show up in the workroom day one openly being trans. When you auditioned for the show, did you feel the enormity of that and the pressure when you put in the application?
I was very nervous, and there really wasn't a reason to be nervous. It was just the reality of like, am I ready? Is this it? Are they going to see this for me? I hope that they affirm me. You know, I didn't know what to expect because, like you said, we've seen in the past that trans has been a very tumultuous topic. You know, I was so afraid to say the wrong thing. I was so afraid to be the wrong girl. I was so afraid to do the wrong thing and then like upset people that had brought me there and then lose all of it. With Peppermint, like as well, like, you know, there were people who had come in and done it, But that's a lot to feel like, this is your one shot. Like, Peppermint was, for all their personal reasons, like more on stealth mode while they filmed. And then it came out through and out of, but like that was a different journey. And so I just felt like I really didn't want to do or say the wrong thing. I think that there are a lot of people with Drag Race that are trans, beautiful, amazing people, but because they stood up for something that they felt very passionate about back when it wasn't the ticket to be super outspoken about transness. I feel like transness up until me walking in the room had a very like, okay, who's this going to be? Problem number one, problem number two, or neutral, or what? Like, what are we going to get? I knew from myself, and I mean, my God, look at my mother, those type of ultra performances, that body queen, ultra beautiful fishy makeup, like that was all stuff that really was started by the trans showgirl that then of course got adapted and received throughout the entire community. So I wanted to make sure that like it didn't start and end with me. And I had a feeling it wasn't going to, but like I had no idea it was going to happen on our season for real. But there were just so many. I think once I got there, it was like a breath of fresh air because I was like, wow, like this really is a space for me, and I'm very lucky to be here.
Yeah. Is there anything in the show you're really upset that you missed out on, or are you content with how far they pushed you through?
Well, they pushed me through is a very interesting statement. I just feel like
it's very No Child Left Behind.
It's very No Child Left Behind. I just feel like I saw myself going all the way to the end, but I'll be really real. The minute that Demoria had her ankle issue and we weren't like resuming the season as like I had anticipated it changed everything. And
do you think with what you had brought to the show and where you were at in your journey that you could have made it to the top 4? Say like somehow you powered through, you think so? Who in the top 4 or 5 would you have taken the place of?
I mean, I don't think it's fair because I think the whole competition changed so much.
It's not about being fair, it's about being messy.
Okay. I mean, you want to be messy?
I would love for you to be
like
messy.
Just sloshy and messy?
Please.
I think in my head, when I was there filming, I saw the top 4 personally being me, Cornbread, Bosco, and Willow. That was what I saw.
Not Lady Camden? It's because she didn't have a top lip. Is that why?
Lady Camden is an amazing performer. I love her. She's a very well-trained like talent. Me being there with her up to that point, I'm not saying I didn't see her as competition, but I didn't see her as a top contender that like, oh, this bitch is gonna take my title.
Yeah.
Like I fully was feeling like it was my time. And I lost that I lost that momentum and I lost that trajectory after things just kind of like got shaken up, sometimes things don't work out how you want, but if I'm being very honest, that was what I initially saw as a top 4.
Yeah. But really get back in for a moment. I feel like when it comes to like trans related issues and topics, you've always spoke so eloquently, but about some other things, not so much. And I think you said it best.
Not other things, not so much.
In 2016, you said, the world is trying to make many things smart. Some things should stay dumb. And you misspelled the word too, by the way. Do you still stand by that?
I was talking about myself, so yeah.
Yeah, you think so?
I agree with that. The world is trying to make a lot of things smart, and some things should stay dumb. Like, some people don't need to overcomplicate things. I think that there is a place for being oversimplified, and there's a place for being ultra complicated, and those two worlds shouldn't mix. Leave the simple life simple. There's beauty in that.
Yeah. You still think the Earth is hollow?
You know what? We haven't been through it. I haven't been through it.
What do you mean we haven't been through it? Like through the Earth?
The only person that flew over something and saw and actually came back with recordings saying that they saw that the Earth did have a crater that went into another place. He died very shortly after flying over Antarctica, and now Antarctica is a military base that you don't have the ability to fly over like that. So realistically, we don't know. I do think that there are other parts in this world that we truly cannot fathom of exploring. And I think that this Earth is a lot older and houses a lot more information than humanity told from the winner's side of wars would care to address. So I think that there's a lot more,
You mentioned too, whenever you were talking about like Hollow Earth, you
Yeah.
said that something about like the poles didn't make sense. Like
They
what
don't.
did you mean by that?
If you look at like what people have done in the CIA, like back in like the 40s and the 20s and the early 1900s, and like now it's public information because it's not like pertinent to the safety of the United States anymore.
Right.
There's a lot of things that they were like trying to explore. There was like a mass expansion. Same thing as like Magellan or Christopher Columbus. They wanted to expand and find new horizons. Well, they were doing that with planes and technology once they had access to it. And there's accounts of people who were astronauts saying that Earth looked very different from when you're up in space versus like in looking at the globe. They've said that NASA is edited. I don't know. I'm not an astronaut. I can't prove that wrong or right, but they've said it. This has been said by astronauts. And for me, it was always the story of the gentleman that was traveling. He was like a very wealthy, very like super like explore the world, figure out the borders of everything, like let's actualize the globe. And like I said, he had that full commentary of as he was flying over the South Pole, and that it was hollow and that there was like a civilization and like world in that hollowness. And then he literally was murdered like very shortly after, like just the plane crashed like randomly. It's giving Aaliyah.
Aaliyah rocked the boat.
The boat was rocked. Feel how you want. You know, I don't think that it's not my business whether the earth is hollow or not. But I personally like to think that I think that every reality exists to some capacity. Maybe it's another quantum of earth that's hollow and not this one. But
it was just such like an interesting position to have. But just to clarify, at least, you don't think the Earth is flat, though?
No.
Okay. I don't think people make memes about flat Earth, Kerri.
There is literally a group of people that, because of just me existing, I think I grind their gears a little bit. So they wait for me to say one thing, you know, that just could be taken out of context or could be put into the wrong place.
Yeah.
And they are ready to eat me alive for it. And me saying that, like, do you ever look at the globe and think that, like, what you're seeing is bullshit was everything they needed. And I was like, it had nothing to do with flat. I don't think the earth is flat at all.
After, like, leaving school and leaving your family, getting kicked out, which we'll talk about here in a moment, it was a lot of, like, you kind of had to, like, explore, like, the world, pop culture, learn stuff on your own, especially being, like, so sheltered and Pentecostal.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think that put you on a journey of, like, you're like, I want to find out about the world for myself?
Yes, I think because of my specific unique upbringing and being raised so sheltered, but being told these are the absolute truths, there is nothing outside of this. And if you hear something else, you're hearing the words of the devil. And me knowing that like that just didn't sit right with me all my life, it taught me to question everything to a point where it's stupid. You know, I'm not going to say it's not idiotic to like talk about Earth being hollow or not, but I think that me being raised that way, and once I realized outside of what I was raised was truth and not, that like there's a very different plane of existence out there, that existential revelation really taught me to trust no one and question everything and feel. The answer is really within you, like or you can Google it, but like you can feel if something feels like it's like, you know, that don't seem like it's right, or that I feel like I got enlightened hearing that. And I use that with everything. I use that with my seasoning salts. I use that to season food.
It's one of those things where it's like, I'm somebody that like, someone said like Earth is round, I'm like, cool, perfect, solid, core in the middle, lava, all that. I'm like, yeah, cool.
Yeah, I agree with that.
With like Hollow Earth, it's like whenever you tweeted about that, maybe it's just like because the difference of like upbringings and like experiences, but I was just like, for me, it was drawing to me. I was like, what an interesting take and what an interesting thing to be so confident about.
I'm very confident about it because I feel like I want to meet one person who has traveled the entire globe with proof and can tell me otherwise. I want someone who can do that. They've flown over every geographical longitude and latitude of every pole, every continent, and they have it graphed out with the science, with the documentation.
I think we have satellites that did that.
Oh my God. And you think that if a satellite is gonna, if a satellite brings back information, but they like They said
You want
aliens
someone
don't
to,
exist for years, and all of a sudden now they're saying, oh yeah, they've been here.
you want someone to go up with a balloon and just like around the world?
I don't think it needs to be a balloon. Like, I want some idiotic billionaire, trillionaire motherfucker to do it. I want like Elon Musk, and I want him to like literally like live camera, like ultra HD. He paid the news networks to like take over for a week, and he just travels the true globe.
Well, he's got satellites up there too.
I'm sure he has satellites. That's not what I'm saying.
You don't fuck with satellites. You're like, no.
I fuck with satellites, but I don't think that like I could tell you that this camera, I'm looking at a camera right now, right?
Yes.
There's a camera there.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that there's a camera there is 100% factual. But the fact that me saying like I'm looking at that camera and you know what I see?
What do you say?
From what I'm seeing from the camera that I'm looking at and the information coming back to me, I'm wearing pink. What? Don't tell me otherwise. No, actually, it's not your place to question me. I am wearing pink from what I'm gathering from this camera because I'm saying so. Right? Everyone will be like, what the fuck? But that's because y'all know.
I'm saying what the fuck.
Do you have the downloaded information of what a satellite sees? Personally, in your phone?
What do you mean?
I feel like in order to have an opinion on like, do I think satellites capture information? Yes. Mm-hmm. Do I think that information gets altered when it's repeated back to us from the source that owns the satellite? Yes, I think everything is altered. We live in an augmented reality. Just straight the fuck up. Everything in our, I mean, it's true.
I think maybe we have two completely different perspectives of like the world. I'm so flabbergasted by like what you're saying. Of just like,
I'm so happy to have a differing opinion. I'm not saying that like I'm guaranteed right, but I haven't seen someone who is able to prove me wrong.
I asked you about like Hollow Earth. I thought you were gonna be like, I thought it was gonna be a funny bit where you're gonna be like, haha, I was just silly goofy that day.
Oh no, I fully think that the Earth does have some parts of it that like are potentially like other civilizations. I do feel that. Just like I said, the government has said that aliens and other life on other planets is impossible. Through our satellites and telescopes, we've explored trillions of planets. There's no life anywhere but Earth. And then all of a sudden right now, which I think is still kind of suspicious, but I do believe in extraterrestrial life. Now it's like, oh yeah, we've uncovered like non-human bodies, all this stuff. And you see how like all of a sudden hundreds of years of like factual, providable, provable information, thus saith the government, just all of a sudden went out the window.
Yeah.
Question everything. I think that I'm not saying that I'm right, but I'm not saying that I feel like I'm ridiculous for having a feeling that there's a lot more out there than you or I sitting here in Las Vegas with a U.S. idea of the world can say.
Oh.
I know.
This is not where I thought we were going to be on the interview.
Know. Did I ruin it?
No, I think it's even more fascinating than the answer I thought you were going to say.
Yeah, but you think it's dumber than ever before.
No. I think maybe you've like seen or learned things that I haven't and vice versa, and I'm just...
What do you think I talk to with these millionaire, multi-crazy people that I be having to have sex with and pretend that I'm into it? I got to have a fierce conversation. I got to gain something from that.
I assumed it was asking them whether they want to be on top or bottom, not about whether aliens exist.
No, I avoid all that. I'm a side, and I like to get into all that with them. So I'd be like, what does your millions and all this shit you've learned, what the fuck do you know? What have you seen? Did you go to the White House? Did you talk to somebody? And what time? 2005? What'd you see? Oh, it was given that fear. Yeah. Okay.
As riveting as this is, I feel like I don't have the same background knowledge to engage in this further. I don't know about the whole alien stuff or anything like that.
Do you believe that there's aliens? I want to know.
I think there's absolutely aliens, at least somewhere in the galaxy. I think it's impossible for there not to be with how big it is. Whether or not they've come to Earth, I have no idea.
I feel like personally that they use Earth almost as like a mining field for energy and resources because we are one of the most nutrient and life dense planets. You know, just like how they pull natural gas out the Earth to fuel people's modern obsessions. I feel like aliens also do that, but it's not natural gas that they're like cultivating. I think they're able to use
I
like
don't.
quantum energy from us.
I don't even know the entry point to engage in this conversation because it's not something I've dwelled on. I think we are at different entry points for this like topic of discussion. But
We're even though we're both cisgender people, we're both
yeah,
straight. Or I'm not cisgender, but we're both straight.
we're two cisgendered biological Pentecostal women. Go on.
100%. I think that like, yeah, our entry points are very different. You know, I prefer vaginal penetrative sex in the cosmos, and you, from what I understand in the past, prefer anal.
Yeah, because I'm saving myself for the right one.
Yeah, until marriage.
Yeah.
It's not the right one. You have the right one now.
Yeah, well, until marriage. Yeah,
marriage,
yeah.
specifically. Until God says y'all can you don't
It doesn't count if it's anal. It's the poop hole loophole.
Okay. And that's where I'm coming from with all this conspiracy shit. But this is like literally what I obsess with daily. So I've done a lot of like spiraling into this years.
You should get out of the house more.
I do. That's why I'm here.
Like more.
I mean, shit, book me more.
Like now's when you're paid.
Flew me out.
Shifting gears now.
Yes.
Shifting gears, like back to the trans topic, but away from Hollow Earth.
Yes.
At what point did it like cement in your mind that you were trans?
Oh my gosh. That's a great question because I've asked myself this a lot. I think this is a topic.
There was a lot of breadcrumbs leading up to, which I'll like talk about in a moment. But it's like, when did it cement in your mind where you're like, I am a woman?
I never felt comfortable in my body. And when I would hear like, oh, you're a little, like growing up, when I hear like, oh, like you're a little boy, you're going to grow up and be a great man of God. And you're going to be a pastor and you're going to have a beautiful wife. And I was like, okay, the beautiful wife, maybe I won't say that's like off the table, but all the other stuff that was told to me that I was, again, this is where my like question everything came from, because I never identify with what I was told. You are this. And I'm like, well, if I'm this, then why do I not feel that at all? Why when I look in the mirror, like I'm not necessarily like ready to jump out a window, but I'm like, ew, I don't like this. This is not what I want. Who is this? I'd make friends with people that embodied exactly who I wanted to be. And I've always like kind of had goal pace setters as friends. Like, you are who I want to be, so I'm going to learn.
What was like the moment or the year or the instance where you looked in the mirror, you're like, I'm a woman?
That conversation, that internal like confirming dialogue of I am a woman, started internally with me. I have brothers, but I was raised pretty much as an only child, so I had a lot of time to myself. And I remember having these questions and saying and answering them internally with myself. Like, I am a girl. I'm a girl. I don't see a girl. I know I'm not understood to be a girl, but I am a girl. Like, I am a fucking girl. There's nothing about me that really, truly understands or relates with masculinity necessarily, and definitely not with being a guy. Like, that was just, I'd be like, that doesn't make sense. It was like a blank space for me. I'm talking like 5, 3. Like, I would have that conversation, but because of my upbringing and being so traumatized and punished out of that, it ended up taking an additional almost 20 years for me to finally own the truth that I knew was true to me. I felt so ashamed for my truth. I felt so scared for owning my truth. I felt like I would be come into harm. I feel like I would get hurt for owning my truth. And I ran away from it for a very long time. I had fun running for a little bit. Like, I can't sit here and say like I didn't enjoy kind of living my life as a guy for a little bit, but literally me and my like twink mask era, when I tried to give that was like cosplay for me. I felt like I was a really great method actor, having so much fun playing in the skin and body of a boy, but like internally being like, I don't know what this is supposed to be at all. This is so funny to me.
It was like really interesting looking back, because even like videos and interviews and podcasts, anything you did prior to transitioning, like the energy still feels like you now, but you looked like a model for a Jacquard Noir, you know?
Jacquard Noir?
That's what, yeah. And so it's like so interesting where it felt like the pieces were there, but like you yourself weren't picking up on them or in denial. But like you actually you left a lot of breadcrumbs without realizing it though. And if I can go like a few, just like the ones that you had, things that you had said.
Oh my God.
That in hindsight, 2014, You said, just saw my husband at lunch. Now, if only I had a vagina.
Oh my God. I remember that exact tweet too.
2015. I love transgender women. They're so much prettier than basic biological females. So you were like enamored by just like trans women in general, even as far back as 2015.
When did I say that?
2015. This is about 4 years before you transitioned.
Yeah.
At 2018, you did a podcast and you briefly mentioned that in drag, everyone thought you were trans, even though you definitely weren't. Like you were just like,
Oh, I went into full denial mode at that point.
Yeah, you were just like, because like my attention to like the feminine touch, everyone thinks I'm trans, but I'm not.
That was an era.
And then like shortly before transitioning, you tweeted about how like it's so liberating to force myself out of my head and try something new. I still look so beautiful. And that was about how you stopped wearing pads and started shaving your legs.
Yeah.
You were like, oh, I'm just feeling beautiful. I'm just a drag queen, but it just feels so liberating.
I think I always was dancing around transness, but for a very long time, I was ashamed and honestly terrified of owning the obvious fucking truth.
I was gonna ask, because as someone that's like notorious for like urging people to accept their transition, why did it take you so long to accept your own?
Trauma. Literally, the answer truly is trauma. And I think it's not that I push people to be trans. As a trans person, specifically a trans person who's known who I was, and now being on the other side, especially me being in denial for so long, I'm able to see that there's a difference in feminine aesthetics from someone who admires women and loves the fantasy of a woman versus somebody who truly does give symptoms of escaping or living a more fulfilled life in the embodiment of a woman. I don't push them, but I ask them questions that are meant to get them really to look internally and be like, oh my God, like my main question to people that always puts a lot of the specifically girls I think that lean more trans through it. I'm like, okay, so you're living, you're a person, you're here. Do you see yourself being an old man? You looking in the mirror at 50 years old and you see a man and he's old. There's no sex appeal necessarily, like the traditional hot, juicy, muscular stuff. Yeah. That stuff is starting to not be it. Yeah. If you see that, how do you feel about that? How would you feel if that was your reality? And when a girl goes through it with a question as simple as that, that's when I'm like, then you need to explore that. It deserves being explored. Just like you should explore it right now. Your eyes are wondering. You identify as a trans woman for entertainment purposes only.
Yeah. If you do something well, don't do it for free, right?
Right. I mean, baby, cross-dressers for Christ.
But it was right before your transition, though, because when you finally came to terms with it, right before that, I feel like it's whenever you were at your most like mask presenting. It's whenever you were growing like your facial hair out. It's like you were drawing on the thickest eyebrows I've ever seen in my life.
It was.
Was that almost like a last hurrah of like, let me really try one last time before I accept this identity?
Funny enough, because we're in a very uncomfortable parallel right now, I'll just share the truth about it. Because let me tell you something. One thing that never changed is my type of men. I've always loved a similar type. I don't really care if it's gay or straight. Like, it's a specific type of guy I'm attracted to, usually. Like, it was always like the mask fishers. I've always been interested in a man that because I like a Dallas man. Dallas men are very straight. They're straight, but it's kind of like Canada. You can tell they like to get their ass ate. Like, they have a feminine flair, but they're straight. So I think a part of what I went through is I was like, I need to be attractive to these men as a man, even though I know that this is like not authentic or organic to me. Because the first thing I would do when I'd get with the guys I'd like, they'd be like, wow, you're really like, you're legitimately like a woman in a man's skin. Like, I feel like I am with a woman because of the energy that you house and how you go about your life.
Yeah.
And then this is where it gets deep. My brother passed away. My dad's favorite. He's Joseph Anderson Jr., which is like my dad's name. His birthday was April Fool's. He was an Aries. My dad's an Aries too. So you're just like macho, ex-Marine, 6'2", beefy. Like, he looked like a 300 character from like the movie. Like, he legitimately did. And so he was so masculine. I was like, oh my God, this is what I need to be to like be fulfilled as a man. If I do this, this is what I have to get to. And when he died, there was a lot to unpack there. When someone is raised to not be open with their emotions, they're raised to not be able to share how they're feeling. Things like therapy are not normalized. It's looked at as weak. If you don't buckle your pants up and just get over it, men don't cry. These type of concepts they're inhuman. And I think when you push that narrative on someone because you think they're so tough and they're so introverted and they're so closed off with their personal life, that you never know what they're doing. You don't know what they're doing. You don't know what they're going through. And then it gets extreme enough to the point that it ends up costing that person their life. I don't want to get too emotional, but that will put you through it. Especially when who I was trying to identify at the time was so dependent on this is my role model. Mm-hmm. This is my mixed race brother, because my other brothers are white. They have my same facial features because my mom is very distinctive looking.
You don't resonate with their experience as much.
Not quite, there was an ingredient missing. They did not grow up as a person of color. They didn't. They just truly didn't. But with Joey, I saw so much of me. I saw my potential, and I saw that even though my family all that went to shit, my dad had respect for this person. My dad loved this person. My dad clearly picked this person as his favorite. And when that all went to shit because he, was found dead from huffing abuse and his own private addictions in his car, it shook me. And I had to ask myself, am I being authentic?
Is Joey, is he your brother that passed away in 2018?
Yes. So he passed away when I was literally in the height. I was taking testosterone shots. In LA, the boys be juicing. Okay. So that's why a lot of these LA gays, how do you look so good? Oh my God, you don't look like normal or real. It's because they're not. That is just the culture. Once you're there long enough, it gets suggested to you. And I was fully doing it, because I was trying to live the life of I'm going to be this ultra masculine macho person that everyone wants me to be. Then I'll get the affection that I want from everyone. Mm-hmm. It was a very backwards, unhealthy construct that I was living out.
Was it just a pursuit of the acceptance of your peers and love interests and people around you, or was it also a pursuit of acceptance from your family, or was you, or were you past that? You were still...
at that time, a lot of my awakening and my realization of life and for me what the balance of existing really feels like it is, it came from death, and it came from me having everything that I was blindly chasing be thrown on its head in a moment's notice. All it took was, I remember clearly, I was at work, I was hungover, I was not talking. I don't really talk to my parents, less now because the trans thing is not for them. But back then I was trying to have some conversation, but I didn't talk to him much. And I remember my dad called me. I was at work, I'm talking about hungover, because I was spiraling. I was trying to do anything I could to make me feel happy, confident, and not miserable with who I was, because I knew I didn't love me. Mm-hmm. It was impossible. How could I? I hated what I saw. Not only was it the wrong gender, it was the wrong everything. But I was I'm going to do this because I told myself transitioning masculine is more acceptable and less disappointing than really owning my transition and transitioning female. So I was a twinkie, ugly little, super feminine, running around. And I was I'm going to try to be mask as fuck. And that was not giving it, but I was trying my damnedest. I got a call from my dad out the blue. I was why is he calling me? I don't talk to him like that. Answered it. Literally was yeah, what's up? I'm hungover right now. I'm at work. I'm about to go on a tour. Seconds. I just wanted to call you and let you know that your brother, Joey, was found dead. And at this time, he was 39. And that, especially because of where I was in my life, it fucked me up so bad that it forced me to see things and live in things as they were, not as I wanted them to be. I had to stop projecting and I had to start living in the present tense. And I realized life is way shorter than we may think it is. Life is way too precious. And I think what killed me internally was I was thinking about, now I'm realizing you could die a lot sooner. We always assume we're gonna see our brothers die when we're like in our 70s. And it's like, oh, I was old. He was old. May he rest in peace.
It put you like an existential crisis of sorts.
Complete crisis. And I asked myself the question, if I were to be found dead or if I were to die, our souls are a lot more energy, and I believe in souls, in spiritual energy. There's a lot more in us than this right here. This is just a flesh suit that we get to kind of like play dress up with or enjoy. But our spiritual self retains and processes a lot more information than like even we do. And I would think about, and it couldn't get out of my head at the time, if I were to die, would I feel like I was living a fulfilled life that I wouldn't in my death have regret with? And I couldn't tell myself that I would feel that.
So it was like a lot of it was like 2018.
That was when I broke and I started to go non-binary. I started to do drag because it was a slow journey. I was so mortified at the idea of, oh my God, am I really going to transition? Am I really going to do the one thing that's going to change my life forever?
You said he passed away April 1st?
His birthday was April 1st. He passed away in December 2018.
April 1st, like it was 2018 he passed away. 2019, April 1st.
That was my first birthday of him not being here.
Your first birthday, and it was, you had also like,
first birthday.
You had also tweeted at that time, 2019, April 1st, you tweeted out, you said a picture of yourself in drag, you said, I'm trans, a bunch of other stuff, and you said, April Fools. It's kind of funny hindsight.
Did I say that?
You did, April 1st. It was like your brother's birthday, April 1st, the year, like a few months after he had passed away, and you were saying, I'm trans. Was that almost like, after all the thoughts and like the things you had wrestled with, was that almost like you soft launching your identity?
You're not wrong. You're not, like, I'm having to sit with that. You're not incorrect. And if I can remember correctly, I think
it's almost like you were making like a joke about it, but it was actually something that was like in your head.
It was like, even if I didn't necessarily mean it, a part of me meant it, because I was like, this is the one time I'm going to say like, I'm trans. And did I die from it? Did my world end from saying that? And I started to realize, no.
Like you mentioned, like almost like putting yourself in like a hyper masculine like light and like trying to portray a certain image that you feel like you had to be.
I tried so hard.
And you're mentioning with like using like cocaine. I know like somewhere like LA, West Hollywood, was that also something you felt like a pressure to participate in, just to fit in? Like this?
In that era, I don't know what it's like now, but I hope it's changed a little bit. Drugs were currency. And this is how you became like an it girly. This is how you became popular. This is how you became, like, oh, Kerri's a fun time. Like, Dead Name is a fun time. Like, I love them. I want to fuck them. I want to be around them. All this stuff. All of the currencies that kept you relevant were all rooted in how useful you were to feeding someone else's frenzy, whether it was sexual, whether it was intentional, whether it was energetic, whether it was stimulant. Like, you had to be feeding a group of people in order to also eat yourself if validation was what you were looking for. And that's where I was. There's a consequence for everything. And I think there was a lot of that. I was also 22, 23.
Yeah.
So I didn't think about consequences. I really didn't. And I was spiraling.
Running around like West Hollywood, like doing coke and all this, and then your brother passing away, what you believe to be like due to substance abuse. Was that like your wake up call to like get your shit together, start making changes like in your life?
Wake up call, yes. I can't say that I changed anything. In fact, I spiraled worse. It's almost like,
it's because of the spiral afterwards that...
Yeah, the after spiral was like that was the spiral that led me to transitioning. I exhausted everything. I had nothing else. Trigger warning, it was giving terminate my life or transition by the time I transitioned. Like, I had no other options because I felt so ugly internally. Like, how could I do this to my family? How could I do this to my expectations? my friends. A lot of my relationships with friends I had before I transitioned have never been the same since after. And I don't miss it, but that used to fuck with me back in the day.
Was it because you felt like they wouldn't support you after, or do you feel like they were only friends with the persona and like the not real person that you were portraying?
They were very comfortable and they were very codependent when I had to start focusing on me, no matter if it was the popular decision or not. It drove a lot of people away. It did. And at the time I was definitely like, no, don't go. You've been my friend. I love partying with you. I want to see you more. Oh my God, I love being invited to houses with you. And then like realizing that none of that shit fucking matters. Why would that matter? Who does that matter to? But I started to really realize what a healthy relationship was and what one wasn't. And I learned from trial. A lot of the things I've learned in life, I've learned from trial and error.
So you exhausted all possible realities.
I really did. And that's why I think I have the conviction I have now to help people ask those uncomfortable questions now. Because if I would have had someone who was more involved and was more interventional minded and was more aware of what I really was going through.
So let me save you the trouble.
I probably still would not have listened, but I would have loved that. It could have saved me a lot of heartache and time.
Your family wasn't the most supportive of you growing up throughout your life, but it was just recently your dad actually referred to you as his daughter for the first time. How did that conversation go?
I'm still kind of processing that because for me, that's crazy. Like, I've been talking to a few girlies. Demoria has been like a really motivating person in this conversation where, there's a certain point where, and if he watches this, I'm sorry, this is just how I feel. For my own mental health and for where I am in my life, I'm not starting out in my transition anymore. I'm still young in my transition. This is a lifelong journey, but I'm at a point now where I'm not just a little girl. And I also got to a point in 2023 where I refused to settle for compromise. Like, if you're supposed to be in my life as family, and, my family disowned me and kicked me out at 15. And that was a very conscious decision that they made. And a lot of times I've talked to them, they don't necessarily regret it. I think with the whole thing with my dad, there's a lot of like trust that's not there. And when I was talking to him, I told both my mom and my dad, like, I'm not interested in having a conversation. I'm not interested in continuing this relationship. I will not be somewhere where I'm tolerated or disrespected or looked at as something that's humorous or a joke or a sickness. I'm not. And I blocked my mom because she's a lot more evangelical. So I blocked her for a while and I just didn't talk to my dad at all. And then we finally talked more recently. He called me on my birthday and we kind of just started to like get to the nitty gritty of things because he was not happy with the fact that we weren't talking. But I've noticed as I've become more successful, he has become more adamant at wanting to establish a connection. And I'm not accusing him of anything, but I'm also not ignorant to that.
No. The timing is like
very
convenient.
It's very convenient. Like, oh, now you want to be back in my life when you don't provide any substance or support or anything to me, but potentially with what you see is going on in my life, maybe I, in terms of how you feel, could be of support or substance to you.
Yeah.
So he basically told me, long story short, that because now that I've made permanent surgical alterations to my body to identify and to be impossible to be mistaken as anything but female, he can potentially see the possibility of him wanting to call me his daughter. And he's like, if that's what you want, I can actually do that for you because, now that you have breasts and now that I see that you've taken your journey seriously, I can do that for you. But even that, like, how misogynistic is that? He sees my body and him looking at me, objectifying me. He's like, okay, well, this looks like woman enough. I can call you, I can't call you a boy. You have tits. And it's just like, if that's where the line is, that still kind of hurts because, like, you don't know me. You don't seem to want to know me. There's a lot of myths there. And I told him that. And I told him, I was like, this is going to be a very slow journey because I don't know how to trust you. I don't know how to love you. I don't know how to relate to you. I don't know how to do anything with you. because you've not been there, and you think you've been there. You think you've done little things throughout my life that like were little acts of kindness that you think righted all the wrongs. But realistically, I never felt like I was able to have a genuine connection or conversation with my dad. I never felt safe around my dad. I never felt loved by my dad. I never felt desired in the household by my family. And these are real things that I still to this day, with therapy and everything else I go through, these are things that affect me now with my relationships with friends and potential lovers, you know? But yeah, long story short, he's agreed to call me daughter, but we are still in a very, I'm in an accountability era. You can say everything you want, but I need to see it. I need to know that this is not a joke to you. It's not a joke to me. And this is my life we're talking about. So we're working on that. My mom's not there. She literally told me word for word last night that she apologizes, that she can only love me conditionally, but she also doesn't know how to feel bad for that, because with how I live, how could she feel any other way?
Like not sorry for like the way she treated you or the things she did, but just sorry that
She's sorry that we're not on great terms, and that the reason we're not on great terms is because I called her out. Like when I had a conversation with Pamela, one thing I don't pull is punches, especially with my family. I don't really have sympathy, and I don't really have like, oh, that's your mom, that's your dad, you should be so sweet. Fuck that. They weren't sweet. They did not care when I was kicked out. They legitimately did not care. And they showed it in many ways. They tried to make things worse for me. I mean, not to get too crazy and deep, but like before I got kicked out, the reason that we couldn't coexist, they were trying to build CPS cases on me to get removed out of their house because they couldn't stand me. And they said that living with me as a queer person and having a queer identity was intolerable and unsustainable. Therefore, they would rather me be taken away because I'm no child of theirs. And this is how they felt, you know? And these are not things they've apologized for. They've apologized for things were bad. But imagine hearing that.
You were kicked out at age 15. You became emancipated at 17. So between the ages of like 15, 16, 17, like how are you surviving? Like what were you doing?
That whole era, honestly, of me living like more independently in Dallas there was so many things that had happened, from sexual abuse to fake friends to racism to discrimination. Like I experienced so much crazy stuff in that 2.5, 3 years that I honestly, like, a lot of it is I think for my own protection, I've blocked so much of it out. Like I shouldn't have survived, realistically. People who had the same story as me, they are either dead now, strung out on drugs, or so stuck in a life of sex work that it's toxic for them. They're not able to support themselves sustainably. And I know at many different turns that could have been my reality, that should have been my reality. There was no reason it wouldn't have been. There's no reason I shouldn't be like a recovering meth addict. I'm not, but there were situations. You know, it's a very quick thing to fall into when you're an underage person, gay in Texas. But I feel like anywhere, and you're trying to survive, make do, and socialize, and use that for literally survival, it's gateway to hardcore drugs in seconds. And thank God, thank the universe, like that's not the reality, but sometimes I feel like I don't have the answer to some of those questions, because sometimes I don't even know how I made it out.
But you mentioned like your family was not super supportive of you, but you also said that your brother was like one of the first people to acknowledge you as Elise. Like what was your relationship with your brothers at that time?
My relationship with my brothers has always been very interesting. The only one who acknowledges me as Elise, he just recently passed away. Literally, I got a call last week, the worst call ever, because, oh my God. Like, these are things, especially being kicked out and whatnot. I try not to cry, so if I cry, I do, but just know that it's something I fight. I don't love showing emotions.
Bad for the brand.
Right? It's just not it. But with Jacob, I recently just got a call last week from my mom. I just get to Montreal, Canada. We're about to do a big pride thing. I'm ready. I have my numbers, good to go. It's gonna be fun. I'm mentally prepared to just do it. Like Montreal has really hot guys, so I was like looking to cruise, all that stuff. Get a call from her in the morning. Literally, like I think it was like 8 a.m. I'm like, why is she calling me? Why is Pamela calling me? Like, what does she want? Because I don't have a good relationship with her, I set the conversation up to end quickly. I told her, like, oh, I have rehearsals coming up. How are you? Is everything okay? So she, because I put pressure on her, like, not to be on the phone for long, she just hits me with it, like, so your brother Jacob has died. And I didn't even process it. Like, I was like, because I had just talked to him, like, earlier that week on Monday. It wasn't a great conversation. It wasn't a fast, long conversation. But like he and I have kept contact since he met me as Elise, and I'll get into that in a second. Jacob had 2 grown daughters. It's funny because you look so much like one of them, literally, as crazy as that is. You look like one of his daughters, Jaslyn. She literally dresses like this, looks like this, has your eyes, that color hair. I'm going to see her tomorrow, and I haven't seen any of my family since 2018.
This is the buffer. This is like the segue to get you ready for what you're about to
be honest
experience.
With you, as funny and satirical as that might be, I think you're right. Because I think as I'm here, I'm processing this. Like, it's really going to be a lot. But Jacob was always very weary. Like, he didn't really support my lifestyle. He would tell me he didn't agree with how I was living. But when he met me as Elise, I was doing a tour in Dallas. He, oh my God. He had made plans to come and see me because he knew that, like, we don't have the best communication in my family. That's just what it is, Ugh. And even though, like, everything with my family is such shit, like, I don't want things to be horrible. And I don't want to make people feel like me existing is, like, so problematic that, like, no one can have, oh my God, my makeup, but no one can have peace in my family because why? I'm breathing, like, and we already went through this. Like, it was very hard when Joey passed away because that was a shock. I wasn't trans at the time, but my parents, like, they were gagged. They were literally gagged, like, the strongest, the most physically fit of all their kids, like, dead. You can't go back. You can't. And I think that's like what my parents are kind of like going through again, is like all of your decisions you make with somebody, you can't go back and change that. Like, you can't, if you left things or you never communicated something with someone and they die, like, they're not going to remember that. They're gone. They've ascended. They've done whatever. They're not on this plane of existence. But you have to live with the fact that you lived your life in a way that you will never have a peaceful ending with somebody. All of that to say that, like, yeah, Jacob always wanted things to be better. It's so hard to talk about this, but it's just the truth. He wanted things to be better than they were because we all knew it was shit, but we didn't want it to be shit. But I think what always stuck with me, and I think why I go through it so much right now, is he was the only person in my family who, I could tell it wasn't his favorite thing in the world to acknowledge who I was, but he
tried
so hard, and that wasn't something he really liked doing. Like, trying hard to meet someone halfway wasn't a big thing for him. He'd rather just like disassociate. But he like literally took me like one of my memories I'll always remember is that he had taken me to like the women's section of the store, and like he was helping me shop for clothes just for like fun. And it was because like we weren't able to talk. He was so like kind of like anxiety riddled with like meeting someone that like, I am the same person, but I'm so different. And when you realize like this is who I really am, like everything you ever thought you knew about me goes down the toilet because it's a completely different person. Yeah. So you feel like you never knew me to begin with. And the one bridge he could do to try to be like, okay, well, you're safe here. You know, this isn't a hostile environment. It's like, I'll just help you like look for clothes. Like something as stupid as like jogging fucking women's pants. But like for me, that was huge because that was him taking a step to like not necessarily agree, but to try to normalize and to try to make a positive moment from something. And that's like, that's literally my last like memory of him like alive. And it really sucks, but it's so special and so beautiful. And I think that's why I'm like, I have to make sure that I see the funeral, you know?
Do you feel that with your brother's passing that it might become like almost like a wake-up call to your family that like, hey, let's try to mend what family we do have? Or do you think that divide is still going to stay there regardless?
I really don't know. I think that my mom, I think that she's shattered. I think that she doesn't even know how to begin to process what's going on right now. There's a lot of wounds and pain. And so my mom is really alone. And, you know, unfortunately, I'm just being real on here, but I don't really feel bad because I feel like karmatically she has been responsible. You know, I feel like I always say to myself, like my brothers, the ones that are passed, they dealt with the cards that they had. You know, they were shitty cards, but they dealt with them. But ultimately, that deck was handed to them by someone. That trauma was impressioned on them. The ability to feel like they never could talk to anyone. They couldn't be honest. They couldn't be real. They had to cope in their secret, hidden closets, you know, and it was bad. Like what you hear is not always the reality. And when you don't give someone a voice, they're going to cope with that trauma one way or another. And it's usually cursed. And they were so uncomfortable with just telling the truth of where they're at and who they are that they would rather lie to you to make you not panic about something that they had done. Mm-hmm. And that's how majority of my brothers are. And almost none of them, none of them. No, none of us are in the church. None of us are Pentecostal. You're the most Pentecostal out of all my family. Like, you know.
I have a jean skirt.
It's the denim skirt.
Yeah.
It is.
And I don't wear makeup.
None.
So.
Just natural.
Yeah.
God-given beauty.
Just, you know.
Yeah. Touched by an angel.
Some of us are just more blessed than others.
Maybe she's born with it.
She was.
And was.
And was.
And was.
Do you feel like you as like an individual missed out or like were stunted in a sense because of like your upbringing and being forced to grow up, but also missing like a chunk of your childhood?
Yeah. I missed out on so much. I've had the normal things of my childhood that I have are because I realized how divergent everything was, how helter-skelter and how much I resented it, that I deliberately would go and be close to other families and other kids' moms. And I would have them basically be my mom. And we would eat food that was normal. We would watch movies. I would stay the night, like countless girls' houses. I would just stay the night and I'd be like, I don't want to go home. I don't want to go home. I was so avoidant that like I was obsessed with playgrounds, parks, water, pools, zoos. Anytime I could go on an adventure and feel like I got away from anything that reminded me of home and what I went home to. And I remember this from like being very young. Like I'm talking about the same time I realized I was low-key trans internally, like 5. I knew that the world I knew me to be and the world that I was in did not match. And it was ultimately going to be hostile. I knew that. And there, like I said, there is some resentment there because I feel like I was robbed of so many things. I was robbed of support, but I also don't internalize it. It is what it is. But I think this is a part of why I try so hard to be this person that I think people have fantasized and turned into this, like, she's so trans, she's a trans mother and goddess, like saving people. But the real reason I am this way is because, like, the last thing I want is for people out there to grow up and to not know love and to not know what a healthy relationship with themselves and people around them is. And if I can help bridge that gap, I want them to feel like you belong, you matter. And if you feel like you are who you are, but you're not living it out of fear, right now is the time to turn that around.
And hopefully, like, people watching this interview, there's someone out there that is like trans or questioning. Hopefully, maybe they can take some solace in this interview and feel emboldened or encouraged.
Yeah.
Being able to look up to like a confident, beautiful trans woman who made it like her, you
Like
know?
her. Just like her.
Yeah.
You're going to get this whole show in trouble. But yes.
Yeah. With that, I think we're at the end of the interview, end of my cards.
Wow.
But before we go, I did want to give you something. I was asking you earlier about how, like, if you felt like your childhood kind of stunted your growth, because I noticed, like, researching you and looking through like a lot of the things that you posted and talked about, it felt like a lot of like your interests were very scattered. But I know one thing that you were really latched onto that kind of gave you solace was like TV and cartoons, especially. And I know X-Men in particular was a big one. You had done dressed up as Storm for Halloween before, and one of the ones you were really drawn to was Mystique.
Yeah.
Which is why I wanted to give you a little Mystique action figure. If you could just like let the people know like what she meant to you and why like she was like one of the big ones for you. It was like a young
Mystique easily was the most beautiful of all the X-Men when she wanted to be, but who she was to her core was different. She was different. And she was ridiculed for so much of her story arc throughout X-Men for being different. And I feel like it drove her to the point of, identifying as more of like a villain or a bad guy. But she also found her power in owning the fact that she's different, owning the fact that at any given time she could be anyone she wanted. The storyline of Mystique, I think, just let me know at such an early age that maybe there, like I said, maybe there isn't something wrong with me. But I think a lot of trans people specifically, if they did like X-Men, Mystique hit different because Mystique was who she was. And that sticks with me. Always has, always will. So thank you.
Yeah, add that to the you talked on a podcast a long time ago about your love for Mystique, and add that to the list of breadcrumbs of things that you didn't pick up on whenever you were younger, but in hindsight.
I feel like it all makes sense. I feel like I left so many breadcrumbs so we could eat them up at this feast of a podcast that we've had today. I don't think I ever in my life would have imagined having some sort of interview or podcast that was anything like this.
Yeah.
But I'm also so thankful.
And it's the same one where Daya talked about eating ass for 20 minutes. Right. But, that's just the beauty of the show. You never know what's going to happen.
Colonoscopy.
But yeah, with that is the end of the time we had, end of my cards, and the end of this show. Kerri, do you have any shows coming up? Anything happening? You're going to be in Fashion Week coming up. What else do you have going on? Where can people find you?
I am planning to do a little Fashion Week, and this is one of many. I mean, listen, my goal is to continue. I believe in limitlessness, and I want to be someone who embodies limitlessness. I mean, just stay up to date on my social medias. I'm pretty active there. So if I have something coming up or something pops out and you're surprised by it, just know you'll be the first to know if you're on the socials. And I really do. I have so much love for you all too, especially my Care Bear community. Y'all have gotten me through so much to know that I have fans, number one, but also people who, they don't just love me for the surface level, but they love me because something about my story or my life either inspired them, made them want to be better, made them want better for themselves, made them want to be more authentic in any way. I feel very blessed that everything I went through is not in vain, and I appreciate the love and prayers going into tomorrow.
Thank you guys so much for watching. Join us next time whenever we have somebody else, and make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. But until then, till the next time, bye guys.
Bye. Cheers to anal.